Chapter 16, Alien Fruit. The following day was a Friday, but more importantly, it was the summer solstice, the day I'd promised myself that I'd start working on my second book, a sequel to my first mythic sci-fi novel, The Truth Beyond the Sky. And I began that day by writing the following paragraph in my intention journal. Today is an auspicious day. Today, on this first day of summer, I begin writing the sequel to my first story. This sequel will affect and move people even more profoundly than the first, and it will be an improvement on the first in every way. To say that I felt pressure to outdo my first book was an understatement. The Truth Beyond the Sky had gotten dozens of glowing, multi-paragraph reviews, and it had only been out for about 6 months at that point. I'd even received Twitter messages from people that I'd never even met asking me when the sequel was coming out. So once I'd settled in at the community, I took time to flesh out an outline, trying to give my characters a fresh call to adventure, even as I was in the midst of my own, rather different journey. After many weeks of contemplating, I realized that 3 ideas resonated with me the most. First, the main character would be female. Second, this book would be about love and connection. And third, I had to raise the stakes this time around. If I wanted to write a trilogy, this second installment would need to provide conflicts to resolve for the third book. That's all I knew for sure when I sat down in one of the few secluded spots in the community. As I began, I felt a familiar tension that I always got when I began a big project. What if I couldn't finish this book? What if the first one had been a fluke? Or worse, what if I didn't have the self-discipline to focus on writing in the midst of this paradisical place? What if the underlying stress of being managed by Matangi somehow sabotaged the entire project? Could I find balance? Perhaps I could find a better work trade opportunity. There had to be a place that was a better match for me. At least one that wasn't run by a person who felt like a bully most of the time. I refocused my thoughts, opened my outline, and created a new text edit document beside it. Many writers use more complex programs, but when I'm writing, I want everything out of the way. All I want is to see what I've written in crisp text, in Caslon Pro typeface, if at all possible. Caslon Pro is used in the paperback edition of this book. It's close to my heart. For a few moments, I reread what I'd written in my outline over the past few weeks. I had a wealth of ideas, but I didn't have a clear ending in mind. Still, I had a strong idea for a first chapter, so I decided to dive in. After all, the summer solstice was a strong time to begin, and if everything went to plan, I would have a first draft finished by the winter solstice. As I stared at the blank document, my heart filled with a mixture of excitement and intimidation at resuming my characters' lives, characters that people all around the world had said that they loved. An idea hit me, a pattern that would weave through the entire series, and I wrote the first sentence. Even though I would go on to rewrite part of that first chapter, the first line would never change. Asha felt a chill sweep through her body. Starting the following Monday, I took a break from Hilo. After all, I'd spent the last 2 weeks focused on that city. Instead, I explored some of the corners of Pahoa that I hadn't seen before. In the process, I stumbled upon a small orange goldfish in a pizzeria off of Main Street. The owner said that the fish's name was Bugs, no doubt because of how far his eyes bugged out of his head, jiggling disconcertingly with each twitch of his fins. The owner said that Bugs was the mascot of Pahoa, and I came to learn that almost everyone had met the little goldfish. A short walk later, I discovered a small fruit stand with wooden shelves stacked with all kinds of exotic foods. While I'd seen some fantastic farmers markets up to that point, this stand was different. It was open most of the week and had the most impressive little collection of local honey, jams, and fruits that I'd ever seen, all carefully arranged in a cozy kind of way. The trays on the shelves were labeled with names like blue ginger, Philippine purple yams, pink grapefruit, apple bananas, and mame sapote. The woman at the counter, Des, was inviting and happy to teach me about this alien-looking fruit. Originally from Texas, she'd come to the Big Island 5 years ago and hadn't looked back. She ran the stand with her boyfriend, and when I asked if they were running the stand full-time, she said that they were still working at a homestead to make ends meet, but their goal was to be doing it full-time soon. Their stand, which primarily featured fruit from local farmers, was a multi-year project, and they were working really hard to grow the business. I found their situation easy to relate to. I wanted to write full-time, but I still hadn't reached that point. To my surprise, her boyfriend popped his head out from behind the counter, and I gasped to realize that he'd been there the entire time, working on something out of view. He had a quiet, calming presence, and I liked him instantly. I contemplated getting a small $8 jar of local honey or a mame sapote, a large fruit with brown, leathery skin that Des had told me contained sweet orange flesh, but in the end, I decided on a bunch of apple bananas, a variety of banana that is smaller and sweeter than the Cavendish bananas that are ubiquitous on the mainland. Something about Des seemed familiar, and as I walked away, I had the feeling that I would be seeing her and her boyfriend again. Few people had put me so quickly at ease, and I sensed that they genuinely cared about each and every person that they sold food to. I walked back down to the intersection at the south end of town and stuck out my thumb, and it only took a few short minutes before a kind soul pulled over to the side of the road. This time, I was picked up by a friendly young woman named Sandy. She asked me where I lived and what I was doing on the island. I told her a bit about the community and asked her where she was staying. Excitedly, she told me about a meditation center nearby. She loved it there, and in a few weeks they were hosting a 10-day silent meditation retreat. They were also looking for volunteers. I cleared my throat, considering her invitation. I'd meditated in group settings before and had enjoyed it. I was also actively searching for a change of pace, but the idea of 10 days without speaking gave me pause. I told her I'd have to think about it, and asked her the address of the center. As she dropped me off near the community, Sandy stressed how much she benefited from the experience and urged me to think about it. I smiled back, saying that I would, and thanked her for the ride. As I walked away, I considered her story and made a mental note to hitchhike down to the meditation center that she said was so close. But how could that be? Out of the dozens of drivers who had picked me up, not to mention everyone else in Puna that I'd talked to, no one I'd met up to that point had ever mentioned a meditation center. Was it just starting up? Clearly, I would have to investigate.